Welcome back, S'mores, to Beyond the Campfire. We got a really good episode for you guys today. We're going to be doing things a little bit different, though, this episode. Steven was like, man, like, because we were talking about a topic that takes place in the past, and Steven was like, I'm tired of time traveling, man. It makes nauseous. It makes you nauseous, right? He gets motion sick. Okay, guys. So instead, we're going to be doing this where he's got a ChatGPT story where we're going to go through that story. As we go through that story, Steve will be filling us in real life details about what has happened with this certain incident. And we're going to be two cops from the 80s, right? Was it the 80s?
Late 70s, but yeah, basically 80s.
Close enough. So we're going to be eating some donuts, drinking some coffee, having a good time. Make sure you guys stick around for it. And make sure you guys follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Beyond Campfire. And make sure you guys go listen to our Patreon because we had an episode come out with this episode coming out on Friday. The episode came out on Wednesday, and it's a really good Patreon episode. I really think you guys are going to enjoy it. I've had a lot of fun doing it. It's just me, but I had a lot of fun doing it. So, without further ado, Steven, where are we going? What are we doing? Why are we cops?
All right, we are going to Yuba County, California in February 1978. Definitely a crazy time. It's not quite the 60s, but, Nixon, he had his stuff in the beginning, and now Jimmy Carter's president. And we get to 5, people call them boys, but, they were men. They're called boys because most of them had some mental disabilities. And so, we'll kind of get into some of that. One of the guys, Gary, our ChatGPT story actually doesn't talk about Gary too much, but I'll fill in details about Gary as we go along. But yeah, you have these 5 men, the oldest of them being about 32, the youngest being 24, and they like basketball. They all play basketball. And on a night in February, they have a game the next day. They play on this basketball team, but they decide they want to go and watch a basketball game the night before. Game's about an hour away, but they're like, hey, we'll be back by 11 p.m., 12 p.m. at the latest if we want to get some food. So we're going to go back in time. Me and Will are cops in Yuba County, and we will go from there. So, Will, do you have the story pulled up?
Yep, I got it pulled up right here.
All right, what we're going to do is I'm going to be the narrator and myself. Will be himself. And, Will, do you want to be the other characters that might be?
Yeah, I could be the other characters.
Okay, cool. So, without further ado, again, details. We'll read a chapter. I'll fill in some details. Read a chapter. Fill in some details. Go from there. Hopefully, this shouldn't take too terribly long.
Yeah.
All right. Chapter 1. The Call. Yuba County, California, had a way of settling into silence. The kind of silence that wasn't peaceful so much as empty. A wide, unbroken hush stretching across pine groves, old mill roads, and the faded warehouses near Marysville. For Deputy Will, that silence was the enemy. He kicked his boots up on the dash of the patrol SUV, tilted his wide-brimmed hat back as he watched a pair of crows arguing on a telephone line.
Steven,
he said, dragging out the syllables dramatically.
I swear, this town is trying to kill me with boredom. Not even a drunk raccoon in days. If a cryptid could just pop out of the woods, just one, I'd be grateful. Bigfoot, Mothman, even some damn Puckwudgies. I'm not picky.
Deputy Steven didn't even look up from paperwork he was reviewing on a clipboard balanced against his knee. His expression was calm, thoughtful, the opposite of Will's restless fare. Will, he said, peace is a gift. You know how many counties would love a week like this? I thank God for quiet shifts. Will shot him a look of theatrical betrayal.
Where's your sense of adventure, partner? Don't tell me law school beat it out of you.
Steven finally looked up, meeting Will's eyes with a dry smile. Being grateful isn't the same as being boring. Besides, every time you say you want something interesting to happen, it does, but it's never the fun kind. Will opened his mouth to retort, but froze as the radio crackled to life.
Unit 3, respond to welfare check. Caller is a patient reporting her son and his friends did not return home last night. Address to follow.
Stephen lowered his clipboard. Will pulled his boots off the dash. Both men straightened. Guess Peace took offense to your trash talk, Stephen murmured. They pulled up to a pale green house tucked near the edge of the woods. Porch lights still glowed, though the sun was already up, and a woman in her 50s stood wringing her hands on the walkway.
Deputies, thank you for coming.
Her voice shook.
It's about my boy, Ted. He and his friends went to the basketball game last night at the college arena. They never came home.
Will and Stephen exchanged a quick glance. More parents joined her in the living room. 4 mothers, hollow-eyed, speaking over one another, trying to cling to hope. They explained in fragments. 5 young men, a playoff game at the Marysville Arena, plans to stop for snacks afterward, a promise to return home by 11 p.m. Silence ever since.
We've checked everywhere.
One mother said.
None of them showed up to work this morning. Their cars are still gone. Phones are off.
Stephen spoke gently. We'll start from the beginning and retrace their steps. Ma'am, we're going to do everything we can. Will nodded in agreement, though tension flickered behind his usual swagger. 5 missing young men, no contact, no witnesses, no explanation. This was not the kind of excitement he'd wanted. One mother pointed to the boys' shared interest in basketball.
They loved the team, lived for it. They'd never leave that arena without calling.
Stephen scribbled notes, each detail tightening the unease in his stomach. Will exhaled and adjusted his hat.
All right,
He said.
let's start at the game.
The 2 deputies stepped out of the home, the mother's worried murmurs lingering in the air behind them. Stephen closed his notebook and stared across the quiet neighborhood, a stillness that suddenly felt wrong.
Think this is just a misunderstanding?
Will asked. Stephen didn't answer right away. No, he said finally. I think something happened last night. Will nodded, jaw tightening.
Then let's go find out.
They climbed into the patrol SUV. As Will turned the key, the engine rumbled alive, headlights cutting through the pale morning fog. Ahead of them, the outline of the Chico State basketball arena rose in the distance. Silent now, but holding secrets from the night before. They drove toward it. Okay, that's chapter 1. So, very quickly, you have these 5 young men, as I said, with mental disabilities. You had Ted, Gary, Jack, Jackie, and what was the other one's name? Where's my notes? But yeah, you have these 5 young men. They were all friends. And Bill, that was the other one. I was about to say Billy. So they drive to this basketball game, and they don't return. They're supposed to be home by 11 p.m. that night. Around 3 a.m., all of their parents kind of notice they're missing, and they call the cops. Cops investigate. Any questions before we go to chapter 2?
No, pretty straightforward.
All right, chapter 2. Chapter 2, the basketball arena. The Chico State basketball arena still smelled faintly of popcorn and old court varnish when Will and Stephen stepped inside. A janitor pushed a broom across the lobby, humming to himself as he noticed the badges. Morning, Stephen greeted, flashing his ID. We're looking into whereabouts of 5 young men who attended the game last night. The janitor frowned.
Yeah, well, I saw a group of guys cheering pretty loud in Section C. They didn't seem out of place, though. Game ended about 9:30.
Will took a slow walk around the lobby, letting his eyes linger on the floor rather than the people. Detective work was often done in details. He crouched down near the exit and rubbed a thumb through a streak of dried mud on the tile.
They tracked something in.
Will muttered. Stephen glanced over. Everyone tracks mud. It's February,
Not this mud.
Will said, scraping off a small flake.
This is from the foothills. You see the red tent? Definitely not from town. Means they didn't head home right after the game.
Stephen raised an eyebrow. That's a leap,
Not a leap, a hunch.
Will corrected.
And my hunches are legendary.
Stephen sighed but smiled faintly. Your hunches get us nearly killed at least once a month. They moved deeper into the arena. Security footage wasn't available, The system had glitched the night before, but the parking attendant remembered the boys leaving excitedly, laughing about overtime, and piling into one car. Which way did they turn out of the lot? Stephen asked. The attendant pointed without hesitation.
Left.
Stephen's brow furrowed. Left leads north, away from their homes. Will tapped him lightly on the shoulder.
See? Fellas went the wrong way. The question is, why?
Before Stephen could respond, his radio crackled.
County Dispatch to Unit 3. We've got a call in from a store clerk in downtown Chico. Says she saw 5 young men matching your description around 10 last night.
Chico, 40 or so miles north of Yuba County. Will's eyes lit up.
Knew it. They weren't heading home.
They arrived at the small convenience store just off the Chico's town square. The neon open sign flickered weakly as a middle-aged clerk leaned against the counter, arms crossed, looking unimpressed by the badges.
You the deputies asking about the 5 weirdos from last night?
She asked.
That'd be us.
Will said.
Mind walking us through what you saw?
She rolled her eyes.
10 o'clock sharp, right before closing, 5 grown men piling in like they owned the place, buying snacks, sodas, talking over each other. Made a mess, too. One knocked over a display of pork rinds.
Stephen cut in gently. Did they seem intoxicated? Frightened? Did they mention where they were heading?
No idea. Didn't ask. Was too annoyed they came in last minute.
She shrugged.
They paid in cash. Didn't say anything to me except sorry when they bumped into the door on the way out.
Will leaned forward.
Which direction did they go when they left?
The clerk pressed her lips together.
Didn't notice. I locked up and went home.
That was the end of her usefulness. Back outside, Will smacked the roof of the patrol SUV in frustration.
So we know they left the arena, and instead of going home, they took a spontaneous road trip up north and made a snack stop, and then nothing?
Stephen exhaled slowly. Let's put out a bulletin. Someone had to have seen them after 10. Will nodded and keyed the radio.
Dispatch, Unit 3. Put out a countywide bolo on the Yuba County 5. Last seen at a convenience store in downtown Chico around 10 p.m. Requesting any sightings, dashboard cam footage, or tips from residents along Highway 70.
The dispatcher responded affirmatively. Stephen looked out toward the edge of town. Will? Something isn't adding up. Will stared in the same direction, jaw tight beneath his mustache.
Yeah,
He murmured.
I got a bad feeling we're about to find out why.
Okay, so real life, yeah, there was a clerk lady. She saw them at 10 p.m., was annoyed, and we don't hear anything about the Yuba County Five for another few days. With that, let's get into Chapter 3. Chapter 3, The Sighting. 3 days passed, and the quiet of Yuba County felt heavier than usual. Not peaceful, not empty, but waiting. Local news stations had picked up the search. Flyers with the boys' photos hung in diners, grocery stores, the county fairgrounds bulletin board. Still, no sign. Stephen sat at the desk at his station, nursing a lukewarm coffee, when the phone rang. He answered automatically. Yuba County Sheriff Office, Deputy Stephen speaking. Whatever he expected, it was not the trembling voice on the other side.
Deputy, I don't know if this is anything, but I saw a group of men a few nights ago up in the mountains. 5 of them. I'm not sure, but I think they might be the ones you're looking for.
Stephen straightened. He raised a hand, motioning sharply to Will, who immediately jogged over, hat in hand. Sir, Stephen said, can you tell me your name?
Joseph Shones. I live up near the foothills. I had a heart attack, I think, or something close. It was late, real late. I was driving through the snow when it hit me. Car got stuck.
Will mouthed. A heart attack? Stephen held up a finger. Wait. Shones continued, voice strained, but clear.
I saw lights, a car. Thought help was right there. It was 5 young men, and a woman, and a baby.
Stephen blinked. That didn't match anything they had. He kept his tone steady. Did you speak with them?
I tried.
Shone said.
I yelled for help, waved. My hazard lights were on. I know they could see me.
A pause, long enough that Stephen and Will exchanged a look.
But as soon as I yelled,
The man said finally.
their headlights went off.
Off? Stephen repeated.
Yes, completely. Like they didn't want me to see them. Then I saw them again. 15 minutes later, maybe. I saw flashlights. The same group walking along the road. I shouted again, begged them, and they turned the flashlights off.
The line fell silent for a moment. Stephen felt a chill creep up his spine, one that Will, hovering beside him, clearly sensed too. Mr. Shones, Stephen said carefully, can you describe the group again?
5 men, 1 woman holding a baby. They kept their distance. They didn't help me.
Stephen leaned back, unsure what to make of it. People acted strangely under stress, especially at night, especially in snow. Will muttered,
Why would 5 kids be wandering the mountains with a mother and newborn? I mean, that doesn't make sense.
Stephen agreed. But then Shone spoke again, and everything in Will changed instantly.
They were driving a Mercury Montego, an older one, a 69 maybe. Hard to tell in the dark, but I know my cars.
Will's eyes snapped wide open. His head jerked towards Stephen. Mr. Shones, Stephen said slowly, are you certain about the vehicle?
100%.
The man replied.
A 1969 Mercury Montego.
Will's voice cut in, barely contained excitement breaking through his earlier skepticism.
Sir,
He leaning closer to the receiver.
did that car have a dental on the left rear panel?
A pause.
Yes.
Shones said.
Looked like it had been there a while.
Will nearly slapped the desk.
That's Jack Modrigo's car.
He hissed to Stephen.
It's theirs, Stephen. They were up there. They were in the mountains.
Stephen didn't answer at first. He processed the information like a chess player staring at an impossible board position. 5 men missing, seen miles from home, acting strangely, in deep snow, at night, not asking for help, avoiding someone needing help. Finally, Stephen stood, holstering his service pistol. Mr. Shones, he said. Thank you. We're on our way up. He hung up. Will was already halfway through the door, grabbing his jacket.
Come on, partner.
He called.
This is it. We finally have a real lead, a real direction. We got to get up that mountain before the trail goes cold.
Stephen followed, heart pounding with something between dread and purpose. The mountain waited, silent, cold, and holding answers neither man was prepared for. Okay, so that was a real life call. That guy called. He said, yeah, he had a heart attack. Saw them with the lights. They turned it off. So all 5 were there. They were with a woman and a baby. Spoiler alert. So we don't hear about this woman or baby ever again. So yeah, very, very mysterious. Maybe the guys were helping this lady. We'll talk theories at the end of the episode. Hopefully we'll be able to wrap up in time. But any quick questions before we get to chapter 4?
Nope.
Alrighty, let's do it. We're about halfway there, so I think we can do it. Chapter 4, the car. The climbing to the foothills was slow. The sheriff's SUV grinding steadily through patches of old snow and newly fallen slush. Pines crowded the roadside, their branches heavy with white, narrowing the world to a small corridor of gray sky and winning asphalt. Will kept leaning forward in his seat, eyes bright with anticipation.
Partner, if we find that Montego up here,
He shook his head.
I knew we'd get a real lead. I knew it.
Stephen wasn't smiling the way he normally did when Will's excitement became contagious. He kept his hands tight on the wheel, scanning the terrain. Just remember, Stephen said softly, whatever we find, we still don't know if it will lead to the men. A mile deeper, the curve of the road banked sharply, and Stephen tapped the brakes. There, he said. Will saw it instantly, a glint of metallic green beneath a ridge of snow. They pulled over. Both men stepped out, steam rising from their breaths into the cold morning air. The car was unmistakable, even half buried. The shape of the rear fender, the district trim, the faded Yuba College Warrior sticker peeling off the back window. Will approached slowly.
It's Jack Mondrago's Montiago.
He whispered. Stephen crouched near the bumper, wiping off frost. No doubt, he said. License plate matches. The two shared a brief electric moment, the rush of discovery, before reality settled in. The doors were locked, no footprints around the car, no broken glass, no sign of a struggle. Stephen used a Slim Jim to open the driver door. It clicked easily. Inside, the car was eerily tidy. No signs of panic, no explosion of belongings, no chaos. Just absence. Will leaned in, scanning the ignition, the floor, the seat positions.
Keys aren't here.
He murmured. Stephen reached across the dashboard and opened the glove compartment. Inside were 4 neatly folded maps. Will frowned.
What? Why would...
They didn't use them, Stephen said. Not one is open. Not one has creases. These are perfectly untouched. Will stepped back, his excitement dimming.
That doesn't make sense. They didn't plan for a trip. They were lost. So why come all the way up here?
Stephen walked around the Montego, squatting near the rear wheel. Look at this, he called. Will joined him. The tires sat firmly on packed snow, not sunk or jammed. No evidence of spinning, no trenches in the snow where someone might have tried to rock the car free. This car wasn't stuck, Stephen said. Could have driven away, easily. Will felt a ripple of unease.
Check the gas tank,
he said. Stephen popped the fuel gauge. 3/4 full. Will swallowed.
They had enough gas to go all the way home.
Both men stood in silence for a long moment. The trees swayed faintly, snow tapping against the windshield like fingers trying to get attention. Stephen's voice was low when he finally spoke. If they weren't stuck, he said, and they weren't lost, why did they abandon the car? Will brushed a hand against his mustache, staring out at the endless forest beyond the road.
They left it
He murmured.
on purpose in the middle of nowhere.
Stephen looked from the maps and tracks around the car, or lack of them, and felt the first sharp sting of dread. Will, if they didn't use the maps, if they didn't run out of gas, and if the car wasn't stuck...
Where the hell are they?
Will finished softly. The only answer was wind sliding through the pines. All right, so yeah, in real life, again, the car was found, and again, no signs of a struggle. They had enough gas to get back home. It's just weird. They just left it for seemingly no reason. So nothing happened for a while after that. But yeah, any questions so far before we get into the final 2 chapters?
So I'm just trying to track right now because if people are losing track of it. So you had where these 5 guys, the Yuba County Five, they were going to a basketball game in Chico.
Yep.
After the game, they were going to go home, but they didn't go home. And then they went missing. And then the police started investigating. And then there's like a clerk who said that they visited the clerk store and like got food, snacks, all of this. And that was the opposite direction of going home. And that was where the trail went cold for a couple days. And then they get a call from this guy who supposedly had a heart attack and was like, I saw them, they were acting strange and helped me, so forth. Cops went up there to investigate, found the car. Car was not stuck, had gas, and had maps to show no sign that they were stuck, out of gas, or lost. And they were just gone.
That's correct, yeah. And all of this was really weird. So, again, all 5 of these guys had some mental disabilities. Gary at least had schizophrenia. He had spent some time in some mental institutions. He was stable at this point in time. All the doctors are saying, hey, Gary's great. He's in good shape, good health. Some of the other 4 men thought he was a little bit weird, but, that's about it. But it was very unusual of them to leave their car, to not report where they're going, to, it was just strange, right? Like they were acting completely different from how they normally act.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah, because when the car was found, they told, Jack's mother. The mom's like, they wouldn't act that way. All the mothers were like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense either. Why would they drive up? Why would they do all these things? So very, very weird. With that, let's get into chapter 5, the second to last chapter. Chapter 5, The Man on the Call. 3 weeks passed. 3 long, gray, grinding weeks where the mountain swallowed every lead Will and Stephen had chased. Search teams combed the trails, helicopters scanned frozen ravines, cadaver dogs sniffed through snow-choked logging roads. Other counties joined. Other states volunteered resources. And still, nothing. The Yuba County Five had vanished like smoke. Will paced the sheriff's office, boots thudding against tile, anger radiating off him like heat.
This isn't right.
He snapped one afternoon, slamming a file shut.
People don't just disappear. Something took them.
Stephen rubbed tired eyes. Weeks of sleepless nights had taken their toll. We don't know that, he muttered. Maybe they got lost. Maybe they're still...
No,
Will cut in sharply.
we tracked everything, every road, every path. They didn't walk out. They were taken.
Stephen dropped into his chair, exhaling long and slow. And by who, Will? He asked softly. Don't say it. Will's jaw tightened.
The wild man,
He said.
you know, the one people claim they've been seeing roaming the forest since the 60s. The one no one believes is real.
Stephen closed his eyes. Will, please, not this again.
What? I'm not supposed to bring up the fact that 37 witnesses over 10 years reported the same thing. Tall guy, long beard, animal skins, living in the woods like a ghost.
That's called folklore, Stephen said, voice steadier than he felt. You believe too many conspiracy theories. There's no evidence this man exists. Will shrugged, unbothered.
I've been right about conspiracy theories before.
Stephen shot him a look. Will, that one time you guessed the mayor was having an affair does not count. Before Will could reply, Stephen's phone rang. He answered wearily. Deputy Stephen? A trembling woman's voice responded.
Is this the sheriff's office? My name's Debbie. I need to report something about these missing boys.
Stephen immediately sat upright. Yes, ma'am. What happened?
I received phone calls,
She said.
3 of them on 3 consecutive nights.
Stephen motioned urgently for Will, who hurried over. What kind of calls? Stephen asked.
The first night, a man said I knew where the 5 men were. I told him he had the wrong number, but he just breathed heavy and hung up.
Will and Stephen exchanged a glance. Go on, Will mouthed.
The second night,
Debbie said, voice quivering.
he told me to help him or else.
Will clenched his fist. And the third call? Stephen asked. Debbie swallowed audibly over the line.
He said they were dead.
Silence filled the office. Stephen's heart hammered unpleasantly. Will stared at the phone like it had spoken an omen.
Did the caller say anything else?
That's
Wait.
me.
Shoot, that's you.
No, that's good. Hey, that's fine, yeah. Did the caller say anything else? Stephen asked, in voice now a whisper.
No, that was it. Nothing about who he was. Nothing about why he called me.
Stephen steadied himself. Ma'am, how do you know the men? Did you know any of them personally?
No,
Debbie said quickly.
I've never met them. I only heard about them on the news. That's all.
Stephen rubbed his forehead with a shaky hand. Ma'am, how would a stranger call you of all people?
I don't know.
She whispered. Stephen thanked her, promised to follow up, and hung up. The office fell into a haunted quiet. Stephen leaned back, shaken. That makes no sense, he murmured. Why call a random woman? How would he even pick her? Why warn her? Why threaten her? Why? Will cut him off with a cold, steady voice unlike his usual playful swagger.
Because he's a killer.
Stephen looked at him sharply. Well,
You heard her.
Will said.
Help me or else they're dead. That man wasn't confused. He was taunting, confessing, playing games.
Maybe it was a hoax, Stephen said, but his voice lacked conviction.
Maybe.
Will said.
But I don't think so.
Stephen exhaled shakily, uncertainty clouding his normally anchored demeanor. Will placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder.
We'll find him.
Will said.
Whoever did this, wild man or not, he's out there. And we're going to bring him in.
Stephen didn't answer. He wanted to believe it, needed to believe it, but as he stared at the silent phone, a cold dread seeped into his chest. The calls felt real, too real. For the first time in weeks, he wondered whether Will's instincts, the one he'd mocked, were guiding them toward a truth far darker than he'd allowed himself to imagine. So yeah, that phone call was also real. A woman named Debbie called, had phone calls on 3 executive days, and yeah, she never heard from that guy again. So again, once again, spoiler alert, we don't know who that guy is. We don't know where the call came from, but yeah, that's a call that was actually made. So
All right, question.
okay.
Is the wild man real?
Oh yes, yeah. So there was reports of a wild man in the woods. Yeah, sorry, I should have elaborated on that.
Yeah, I was like, okay, so was that just part of like, our cryptid backstory, or was there actually a wild man?
Yeah, there actually was a wild man rumored to be living in that woods. Dozens of people had saw him. To this day, we don't know if that guy ever existed, but that was something that was true at the time. And whenever crimes were reported, a lot of people would say, "Hey, it's the wild man." So
So
you
it's kind of
actually,
like the Yuba. It's like the Yuba County boogeyman.
yeah, for sure. And the woods were actually near where the car was found. So I mean, it wasn't totally crazy to think that
So
it
could
was.
the wild man have taken them? Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. So we'll get into our theories at the end if we have time. Okay. Yeah. We gotta be quick because I know you gotta go. But let's read this final chapter, and we'll talk about stuff after that. Okay. Final chapter: the cabin in the woods. June settled heavily over Yuba County, turning the foothills green again, hiding winter scars beneath fresh pine needles and warm dust. But for Will and Stephen, the cold of February still clung to every unanswered question. They were finishing paperwork in the station when the call came.
Unit 3, we found a body in the mountains near where you located the Montego. You need to get up here now.
Stephen froze mid-sentence. Will's jaw tightened. Within minutes, they were on the road, heading back into the high country. The place where all the truths they'd hoped for refused to appear. The cabin stood where the forest dipped, hunched under the shade of tall firs. It was long abandoned, a government-built forestry cabin no one had used in years. A deputy met them at the doorway.
He's inside.
Will and Stephen stepped into the dusty gloom. The body lay on a thin mattress, wrapped awkwardly in blankets. The man was painfully thin, skin clinging to bone, with a long, unkempt beard and missing toes, likely lost to frostbite long before death. Stephen's breath hitched. Will's voice trembled.
Stephen, is that?
Stephen knelt, hands steadying as he performed the familiar but brutal procedures of identification. Dog tags, dental structures, personal effects. After several tense minutes, he stood. "It's Ted," he whispered. "Ted Weher." Will's head bowed. He rubbed his face hard beneath his hat brim.
Damn.
He muttered.
Damn it all.
His sorrow turned quickly, too quickly, into anger.
This wasn't an accident.
He snapped.
Someone did this. Someone left him here.
Stephen shook his head, voice steady with clinical certainty, though his eyes told a story of heartbreak. No signs of trauma, no defensive wounds, no broken bones, no struggle. Ted died of exposure, cold and starvation, slowly.
But why?
Will demanded.
Why didn't he use heat? Why didn't he eat?
Stephen motioned around the small cabin. The propane tank sat full, untouched. The food cabinet bulged with canned goods, enough to feed 5 grown men for a year. Nothing disturbed, nothing used. A chill deeper than February crept through Stephen's spine. "I don't know," he admitted. Don't understand any of this. Outside, a deputy called out.
Found something.
They followed him behind the cabin, where a pair of shoes lay in the dirt. Sturdy leather ones. Clean, barely worn. Stephen lifted them gently. These are Gary Mathias's shoes. Will frowned.
Gary's not here. Why wouldn't he have his shoes?
No one answered. The search widened. Hours passed. Among thick trees and fallen logs, the recovery teams found the remains of 3 more men. Shattered bones picked clean by animals, scattered by weather, barely identifiable except by fragments of clothing and dental confirmation. Jack, Bill, Jackie. 3 lives reduced to pieces beneath the pine canopy. Will stood over the remains with his hands clenched, unable to muster words. Stephen swallowed hard, forcing professionalism through his grief. But one body was still missing. Gary. Only Gary. The forest darkened as evening came. The reports were written with heavy hands, every sentence a wound. The men died of exposure, no signs of foul play, no signs of violence, no tracks explaining why they fled, no reason for the wrong turn, no explanation for abandoning a working car, no reason for refusing help that night in the snow. No sense, no closure, only questions. The mountain held a silence as Will and Stephen walked back to their SUV. Neither spoke as they drove home. The tires hummed a low, mournful note across the highway, sound of a story that had reached its ending without answers. 5 years later, Yuba County had moved on. The case was cataloged, archived, repeated on late-night radio shows, and local legends. Some called it a mystery. Some called it a tragedy. Some called it madness. But for Will and Stephen, it remained a shadow. Theories rose and fell. Interviews were re-examined. Clues were reinterpreted. But Gary Mathias was never found. No one ever explained the boy's strange detour into the mountains. No one knew why Ted, capable, intelligent Ted, never opened the food closet or turned on the heat. And the calls to Debbie were never traced. The Yuba County Five had simply walked into the woods one winter night and dissolved into a riddle. Will still thought about it when he passed the foothills, still wondered about the wild man, still felt anger simmer deep in his chest. Stephen still prayed for closure, still whispered apologies for families he couldn't help, still shook his head at the case that logic refused to touch. And together, partners, brothers, souls shaped by that mountain winter, they accepted the truth that haunted Yuba County ever since. Some mysteries never end, some answers never come, and some questions remain in the silence of the trees.
That was really good.
And
So, okay, so we know. So, okay, I'm just going to real quickly go through it so everybody understands what has happened in case you guys got lost. 5 men went to a basketball game in another town, and they never came home. And so, parents got worried. Police investigated. They found out that they had gone to some convenience store that was going the opposite direction. And then later, they had a guy call in saying, had a heart attack. They didn't help me. I saw them with a woman and a baby. And the cops went and investigated, found the car, had gas, maps were fine, like no signs that they got lost, stuck, or ran out of gas. And then on top of that, weeks went by. And then you got a call from a girl named Debbie who's like, this guy told me he's going to kill him, and he killed him. And then several weeks afterwards, we find the bodies. And one was in the bed and had no signs of any trauma or anything. He was starved, missing toes, but he had no defensive wounds, nothing to show what happened to him. And the cabin showed signs that there was no reason he should have been that way. And then like the other ones were found the same exact sort of way. So what are like, and that was it. They never investigated further. Gary just disappeared and we don't know who killed the other guys.
yeah, so to this day, we don't know where Gary is. His body has never been found. Some people think that Gary was maybe the one that made them all turn. You know, Gary would have schizophrenia. He would report like seeing weird things like demons or creatures attacking him. So, there's a theory that maybe he led the group on this path in the first place. I didn't have time to put everything into the story, but one theory is Gary Matthews had some friends that lived in the small town of Forbestown, and police believe that it's possible that in an attempt to try to go visit them, the men made a wrong turn that led them up the mountain road, and that for whatever reason the men left a Mercury and tried to go back the way they came. That's when Joe Shones, who actually was in our story, Joe Shones was a real guy. He had that story about seeing them. That's probably where he saw them. But were they going to visit his friends in Forbestown? Maybe. The police interviewed his friends in Forbestown. They said, yeah, Gary was our friend, but he didn't call about coming. We hadn't talked to him in weeks. We didn't know if, anything about him coming up and trying to see us. Other theories, police actually did talk to a water wizard or like a water witch. She pointed them to another cabin, but that cabin had nothing in. So that's why I didn't include it in the story. I think it would have been fun, a scene of you and me talking to a water wizard, but
You're a wizard, Harry.
I know. So I really wanted to include that in, but I was just like, it would have been hard to have included it in and
Yeah.
it not lead to anything. But I'm trying to think. Is there any other questions you have that might help fill in details?
So let me understand the theory. So we got a theory that Gary being schizophrenic led his friends out there, and that's why they got lost.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
definitely.
there's another theory that Gary might have wanted to go visit his friends, and then they took a wrong turn and got lost. Is there any supernatural theories?
There is, yeah. So Gary would be stable at times, right? Like Gary was actually normal in the months leading up to this. So some people actually suspect Gary actually wasn't schizophrenic, but that he had a sixth sense and that he was able to see demons and things like that, because that was some of the things that was reported about him. So people think that he probably had seen some kind of spirit or something, which is why he told them, hey, leave the car, we got to get out, the spirit's gonna get us. And they probably ran into the cabin. They probably had wanted to eat the food or turn on the heat, but Gary probably told them, hey, the spirits are telling me don't eat the food here or turn on the heat. So again, some people say, well, that was his schizophrenia talking. Some people say, well, no, that was just him having a sixth sense. So that's some of the supernatural theories. The wild man. So we don't know much about the wild man. People just said he's a guy that lived in the woods. Some people think that he was possibly possessed by a cult of Satan. There was another weird phone call where, oh, you know what? I told ChatGPT to mention this, but they didn't mention this. But the guy that called, he said, help me. He told Debbie to help him. And he mentioned a ring of Satan that he was looking for. So we don't know what that was about.
Man, and this is just a big old mystery. And there's no leads. There's nobody knows exactly what truly happened. Because from the way I'm hearing in the tragic tweet story, because obviously that's what's that's the facts is there's this food in the cabin, there's heat in the cabin, there's all this stuff in the cabin. Why didn't they take it? The car's fine. Why didn't they drive it? It doesn't make sense.
Ted, we know he wasn't alone in the cabin because Gary's shoes were found in the cabin, but also Ted had a bunch of sheets on top of him, and the way the sheets were laid out, he would not have been able to put it on himself like that. Someone would have had to lay those sheets on him. Ted was actually alive. I don't know if the ChatGPT story mentioned it or not, but Ted was actually alive for several weeks before he died. Investigators could tell that by the way his beard grew. Also, he had lost 80 pounds, so he was about 200 pounds. He was about 120 pounds.
Good Lord, that was me in college.
Yeah, and when you die, you don't lose weight, right? So the fact that he had lost that much weight showed that he had actually lived for several weeks, so he had a pretty miserable death. The bodies of the other men, their clothes were exchanged. So, let's say you and me were dead. I'd be wearing your clothes and you'd be wearing my clothes. So that was weird.
That's weird.
Yeah, when they found the guys, like their clothes were exchanged. Um, they could have been attacked, but we don't know because the animals had eaten parts of their body. So
Yeah.
it's hard to say whether they were violently killed or whether they were killed if they died the same way Ted did. But
Yeah, man. I don't know.
yeah, do you remember we talked about it, the Dioltov Pass? We did an episode on it.
Yeah, Devolte Pass.
Devolte Pass. Yeah, some people say that this is the American Devolte Pass. So, just wanted to add in some connection
Yeah.
to.
So what do you think could have happened then? I mean, based off your research, like, do you think we could find a definitive answer, or you just don't know?
I think the answer lies with Gary, but Gary's gone, right? I think Gary was definitely the weird one out of the group. Like the four of them were friends. They had like kind of let Gary come into their group, but a lot of them didn't really like Gary. They thought he was kind of weird. And, Gary had some incidences in mental hospitals before. What that theory does, though, that Gary led them astray, what that doesn't explain is why they would listen to Gary. Because if they didn't really like Gary, why would they listen to him? Why would they leave the car? Why would they do all these things?
Well, the other thing too is like if they thought Gary was weird and they kind of knew about schizophrenia, you're right. Like if I knew Steven had schizophrenia and we went to a basketball game and Steven was like, "We need to leave the car. There's spirits." I'm like, "Dude, you're cracked out of your mind.
Right.
Like, shut up, sit down. We're gonna, I wouldn't listen to him. If we went to a cabin and Steven was like, "The spirits are telling me not to eat the food," I'm not gonna be. I'd be like, "Shut up, you schizo." You schizo, sit down over there in the corner, and you don't have to eat the food. We'll eat the food. So that part doesn't make much sense to me.
Yeah.
I truly think Gary has the answers, and who knows? Could it have been the wild man got him? Maybe. Could they have just listened to a schizo? Maybe. Could the schizo have actually had a third eye and seen demons for real? Maybe. Could aliens have got him? Maybe. Who knows? So got anything else for us, or I guess that's about it?
That's pretty much it. It's definitely a weird story. I wish it's one of those things where, like Gary's probably dead now. Like, let's say Gary escaped and he, I don't know, went off to Argentina or something and lived out the rest of his days. Why he would do that, who knows, right?
Well, technically speaking, he could be alive because they were in what, college? They were what, probably like 20?
That's true. I think Gary was let's see, how old? Gary was 25.
So if he was 25, that 1978.
That would mean 1953. Oh, he could be alive. Right?
Hold up, let me calculate. Hold up. 2025 minus 1978 plus 25. Yeah, he'd be 72. He'd be my granddad's age.
Wow. He'd be
my granddad's Gary. No, I'm kidding.
He'd be 72. So yeah, I mean, really, I think Gary is the one that holds the keys to what happened.
Gary really was just like a serial killer, killed his friends, and then escaped to Argentina to be with his buddy Hitler.
Yeah, so
who knows? So yeah.
So I think Gary's the key, but we don't know where Gary is. We don't know if he's dead, right?
Maybe he's dead, alive, chilling in some retirement home with Alzheimer's, not knowing what happened.
Yeah, for sure. So that's the story, man. Gary's probably gone though, and if we don't have Gary, we're not going to get the answer. So could this be found out? I mean, maybe, like, let's say by some off chance Gary is alive out there somewhere. He knows exactly what happened, and on his deathbed he confesses to what happened, right? But so I don't think the case is totally closed and shut. Maybe we get an answer one day, but I doubt we will. I think this is just going to be a mystery.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for watching, and make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. And again, go check out that Patreon episode, guys. It's a really great one. And y'all be careful out there. Some trails don't just get you lost; they take you.